Thank you for chatting to me today. I You actually appeared once previously on the podcast, 2017, to talk about American Made and music, and
Oh,
so it's
wow.
great. It's great to have you back.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Listen, congratulations on Instigators. I had such a great time with this film. Just
Yeah.
yeah, such brilliant writing, brilliant performances. Just the whole thing was just fantastic. What was the kind of I guess what was the appeal for you, particularly with this project? Was it all of those things?
When I read the script to Instigators, I was like, these are such fantastic characters. Like sometimes it's like a story you want to tell when you choose to do a movie, and sometimes it's like it's just the characters in the world. In the case of Instigators, I was like, I just love these characters, and like I'll follow them anywhere. In this case, they're trying to rob the corrupt mayor of Boston, and they're on the run from the police. But like I just wanted to spend time with them.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was kind of sad when the film ended in a way because I feel like we could almost drop in on them individually or hopefully together in the future again at any moment, and they would be thoroughly entertaining.
Yeah. And I was like, Matt Damon and I go back to Bourne Identity, and that was such a transformative film for my career and for his career that like, that sort of forever bonds us. Um, the way that like, prior to that on Swingers, Vince Vaughn and John Favreau and myself, like, that was our first movie, and that,
Yeah.
we'll forever have that in common. Um, but I didn't know Ben Affleck. I didn't know who was a producer on Instigators. I didn't know Casey Affleck, who
Oh, really?
plays the lead. And so it was like, it was like a chance to sort of meet the in-laws, to meet like Matt's other family.
I love that. That's so great. What was it like kind of getting back in the saddle with Matt in a way, in terms of after what is it, what over 20 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like, I think it was about exactly 20 years when we started. Um, it was like, I did sort of two films back to back, Roadhouse and Instigators, in both cases, working with good friends as the lead, because
Hmm.
Jake Gyllenhaal and I have been friends for 10 years. Um, and they're like, so one of the nerve-wracking things, say on Roadhouse, was like, okay, well, are we going to fuck up the friendship? Like, if something goes wrong on the movie, like there's, because it is hard making a movie. And then,
Yeah.
but, then Instigators followed that immediately. I was like, here I am, with a, really a lifelong friendship with Matt. And it was like, maybe, it's like, it's just, you're always a little nervous about like, somehow impacting the friendship, negatively, just in the, because movies are really hard work. Like people see the red carpet and they see, like when we're done shooting and I have a tan talking to you, but like when you're actually shooting the movie,
You're transparent.
it's like, I mean, it's, you get like a certain number of days to shoot a movie, and and I'm really committed to trying to deliver like the biggest, most fun, entertaining film I possibly can to an audience. And that part of that means like, okay, making the most of every second. And certainly Matt Damon appreciates that. And so, we're really killing ourselves and working extremely hard. And that can be grueling. In the case of Instigators, it turned out to be a fantastic experience to be working with someone who is I have such history with Matt, and in a way, yeah, Born Identity was 20 years ago, but in some ways, like, once we started shooting, it felt like it was just yesterday that we were doing Born. We were like, and in a way, the process was very similar to Born Identity, because Born Identity was our first, that was not my first big movie. It was, basically, maybe it was probably Matt's biggest movie at the time.
Yeah.
And uh and certainly Matt was coming off of two movies that hadn't performed. We were doing Bourne Identity. So he'd said to me early on in Bourne Identity that he was like, if this movie doesn't work, my career's over. So we had no business sort of making the movie we made, because Bourne Identity is not the movie that the studio wanted. It's the movie that Matt and I wanted to make. And we fought them, basically every step of the way. And it's to the point where, before the movie came out, Universal was like, said the movie's going to be a disaster. Even the writer I had brought in lobbied to not get sole credit on the screenplay.
Whoa.
He obviously came to regret that.
Yeah.
Not only for ego reasons, but also financially. He gets half the money on something that ended up, spawning 4 sequels. And so, it was, Matt and I, like we were in film school making Bourne Identity and being like, okay, we were all the way in France, the studio's in LA, so they're, 8-hour time difference. And we made the movie that we would want to see. And Instigators, I found myself doing the exact same thing with Matt Damon, where we would, in prep, we would sit in my office with a whiteboard and figure out the story and the script and the character. And I was like, wow, this is literally what we were doing on Bourne Identity. And the only thing is, on Instigators, Matt was the studio as well, right? Because Matt Damon and Ben Affleck started a company called Artist Equity, and that was the studio for Instigators.
Yeah.
And so it was, the whole thing was, it was creatively, I was like, wow, it's just like yesterday. It's the same process. It's Matt and I figuring out, trying to make a movie that we would want to go see. We're like, yeah, we didn't have a studio that we were sort of, pushing back against, that was pushing back against us, but we didn't need that.
Yeah.
We push each other. And it's a little bit surreal because, I'm kind of a rebellious person by nature. It's probably why I'm attracted to stories like Instigators, which is, the characters, Matt Damon's character and Casey Affleck's character are definitely people not trying to conform to social norms. I mean, that's just the definition of doing a heist film. You're not conforming to the rules. Or a definition of doing a heist is you're not conforming to the rules. So I'm into rule breakers. And myself, I'm a rule breaker. And so it's sort of surreal to be making Instigators and be like, well, how did we become the man? Like, because I'm more comfortable, like being, I'm rebellious by nature, but like, it's hard to be, I'm like, it's sort of surreal to be rebellious, but like,
To Matt.
there's no one on the other side because Matt is the man now. It didn't change. At the end of the day, it was like maybe more of an intellectual idea because it turns out I don't need a studio clamping down on me for me to be rebellious. I can just push myself no matter what. But it was this thing where it's like, yeah, Bourne Identity felt like it was just yesterday. And at other moments, I was like, wow, the world has changed. We've gone from these like young actor, young director, like at the bottom of the mountain and the studio chiefs at the top of the mountain. And like it felt like the disparity felt so huge. And now here we are, we're like Matt and Ben are the top of the mountain.
It's the tone of the film I absolutely love as well. And so much of that is down to a lot of the double acts, to be honest. So whether that's Matt and Casey or Alfred and Michael, I'm really hoping that you've already got a prequel for Alfred and Michael in the works because I want to watch that film. I just love those two on
I
camera.
love spending time with them. It
Oh,
was, I say, like showing up to work on Instigators, like, I started off this interview talking about just the hard work that goes into making a movie and really the the kind of dread that I have every morning on the way to work of, uh, am I going to do a good job, today or not?
Hmm.
And I kind of use a sports analogy. I'm very competitive in sports, and I'm like, am I going to win or am I going to lose? And I'm really hard on myself when I lose, like really hard on myself. Um, in fact, it was, like I think one of the toughest things about my fight with Amazon and the release of Roadhouse,
Roadhouse.
where I really, unlike Instigators, which was from the beginning conceived of as a streaming movie for Apple, and it doesn't mean that you shoot it any differently.
Yeah.
It just means that the deals are set to compensate everyone appropriately for a streaming release, because it's a different financial structure, and Amazon didn't do that. We had deals that were for theatrical release, and then they decided they wanted to use the film to sell soap, and I fought them tooth and nail, and I lost. And I realized, like, oh, I really hate losing. I mean, I obviously was fighting to the death for the movie because I believed in the movie, but there was an extra layer that I was like trying to, try to come to terms with, like winning and losing. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
how much of how upset I am about what happened to Roadhouse is about what happened to Roadhouse, and how much of it is about just how much I hate losing.
Yeah.
And like I could show you in the next room, all the broken tennis rackets hanging up on the wall from having lost. I mean, I don't like losing in
You're like
anything.
you're like the John McEnroe of filmmaking, basically, is what you're trying to say, Doug.
And also of tennis, not with the
Yeah.
ability, but with the throwing of the rackets. Um, and
Listen,
even my brother, who's this kind, gentle federal judge, you know, he has his share of broken rackets. So it's I'm not the only one in the family. Um,
family
but
trait.
on the way to work every day, I'm like, am I going to win or lose today? Meaning, like, am I going to shoot something that I'm going to be really proud of, or is it going to be mediocre? And that I have that's just a lot of pressure to put on yourself every day on the way to work. And and then you have a little dread of, like, waiting for the end of the day and hoping, but, like, in the case of Instigators, that was met with also the excitement of, like, oh, I get to be on set with Matt and Casey, and they're so fun to be around. Like, and not fun to be around like, oh, we're doing stuff irrelevant to the movie. I mean, fun to be around, like, you put the camera on them and you put them together, and, like, you can't manufacture that chemistry. Like,
Mm.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Brad and Angie, like, the success of Mr. and Mrs. Smith is ultimately the chemistry of
Yeah.
Brad and Angie. And, like, I can't take credit for that as a director. Like, I can take credit for picking these two people and being like, I think they will have chemistry. But, like, at the end of the day, no, you can't manufacture that on screen.
Mm.
It either happens or it doesn't. And Matt Damon and Casey Affleck had such insane chemistry on screen. It's so much fun to watch them together in these scenes that I both, yes, I had the dread of, am I going to do a good job or not today? But I also had the excitement of, like, what are Matt and Casey going to deliver today? And it wasn't just them. I was, you mentioned Alfred Molina and Michael Stuhlbarg, and, like showing up on days where I had them together because they had their own scenes independent of Matt and Casey. They obviously had scenes with Matt and Casey, but their own. And I was like, well, I could do a series just on these two guys in their bakery. These, like,
Yeah.
kind of like, because Instigators, the script it was set in a world where there was sort of organized crime, and they're getting, approached by, someone in the world of organized crime to rob, the corrupt mayor of Boston. And I was thinking, like, is there really organized crime anymore? And, like, I grew up in New York City, and, in the 80s, there was organized crime, John Gotti and people like that. But I'm like, they're all in jail now or dead. And I was like, it'd be kind of fun to sort of create characters who are, who survived, Like
Yeah.
who's still alive in 2024, world of organized crime? And they're either going to be turncoats who like turned other organized crime members in,
Yeah.
or they did their time in jail and came out. But whatever, they're not going to be the A team anymore.
No, they're
The
going to
A
be running
team for
Italian
sure went to
restaurant.
jail or was killed or died.
It's interesting as well because they've got that natural chemistry that comes from real life, Matt and Casey, and you throw someone like Hong into the mix for that kind of for the three of them, just the most amazing kind of curveball thrown in there. It just works so brilliantly, both in terms of how she is with Matt, how she is with Casey, how she is with the both of them. Those scenes are absolutely fantastic.
That's like I love, I was already in love with Instigators just when you have like Matt and Casey on the run together, and it's such a great odd couple dynamic between them. But the thing that to me is like that really elevates Instigators is throwing in Hong Chow, who's Matt Damon's therapist in the film, and uh, and it was such just obviously never seen that before in any movie, um, and I loved the challenge of say the car chase where I'm a little nervous about doing a car chase with Matt Damon because Bourne Identity and the Bourne franchise really set a very high
Yeah,
bar for like doing car chases. And I was like,
yeah,
I kind of hit it out of the park with Matt. Do really want to go and wade into that exact same waters with the exact same actor. Um, but I thought, oh, Instigators gives me the opportunity to do something at another level, which is, yeah, let's do a fantastic car chase. And the reality is when you're shooting in Boston with the Afflecks and Matt Damon, like the city like bends over backwards to accommodate you. And you need
basic.
that to shoot a great car chase. I mean, there hasn't been a car chase like Bourne Identity in Paris since Bourne because, Paris won't let a film, they after us, they're not going to let that's it. They're not going to let other filmmakers have the kind of access we had. And you can imagine it's very disruptive to a city to shut down roads to do car chases. And that's why a lot of films now, they just do it all in CG. But I love when you can do it for real. And we were able to do that in Boston because, Matt Damon or Ben
Matt.
Affleck can call the mayor or the governor, and they've done so much for Massachusetts and so much for Boston, and kind of they're so beloved there. So it's not like it wasn't hard to get access, but we were ultimately able to get the access we needed to do a fantastic car chase. But what was really exciting challenge for me was because I've done car chases before, chases I'm super proud of. What the challenge that I was really excited about was, can I do a scene inside the car that's more exciting than what's happening in the actual chase? And Hong Chow, having Matt's character, Matt's character's therapist in the car with them during the car chase, basically trying to perform therapy, to save her life, and it's that dynamic in the car. But okay, this is like another level for me. Can I make do a car chase that's more exciting for the inside the car than outside the car?
Yeah.
And that's like when you have Matt and Casey were already fantastic together, and Hong Chow was able to step into that dynamic, right? Because Matt and Casey have been friends since they were teeny kids. So it can't be easy as the third actor in the scene to come into that type of
Yeah.
closeness. And you wouldn't know it. I mean, it was as though the three of them grew up together.
It's the kind of physical side of it as well. Even when there's no dialogue, the kind of you can feel that there's a connection there, and it just works so brilliantly. Um, listen, I know how brilliantly you've used and collaborate on music in your films. You know, we talked about it on the last time you were on. Some great needle drop choices in this film as well, both in terms of just, you know, just for their choices, but also kind of what they make you some. There's a couple that really make you laugh, like House of Pain, Jump Around really made me chuckle a lot.
Yeah.
But just fantastic choices, you know, Edwin Starr, Temptations, Thunderclap Newman. Just, I mean, it's brilliant, so great. And then Christoph Beck, you know, kind of rounding all that off with score. What was you know, with Casey being one of the writers on this, had he written in much music into the script, or how? Talk to me a little bit about kind of those choices and you know where they would work and what would work in those parts.
Yeah, I think the only thing that was in the actual script music was Downtown.
Peculiar
Um,
Clark.
yeah, and that it was going to be that the car chase, that was going to be one of the complicating factors in the car chase, is that her phone has synced with the car's radio and starts playing music, and it's making it hard for Matt to drive. It's just he doesn't. It's not a appropriate song for what's happening, you know. And so that had been written into the script, but the rest of it, I'm very fortunate that Sar Klein, who is an editor who we met on Bourne Identity, and we've done a number of films together, and he's very musical. And I've had, and Steve Marioni, who cut Swingers and Go, it's very musical. I've had great, you know, great luck in terms of developing relationships with editors who are fantastic with music. And so you know, I think editors are the is it unsung heroes? I don't know what they're like.
Yeah.
They do not get the appreciation they should get.
Yeah.
Um, it's not just the music. I mean, it's like every piece of performance you see of Matt and Casey, you know, that you see in Instigators started with my editor Sar Klein combing through, you know, 100 hours of footage and finding, you know, the gem moments.
And I guess those moments as well are a combination of what you've shot that are script, but then giving your actors the opportunity to kind of play. I heard you say that one of the other things that you loved about this film was that finding those kind of, you know, one of the most kind of crazy situations you can put these people in and allow them to play in this playground.
Yeah, I mean, I knew from you know, Matt Damon sent me the script Instigators, and my first reaction reading it was like, we're going to attract fantastic actors. Like this is not since my movie Go have I read a script that had so many great parts, so many fun parts and distinct. Like your typical movie maybe has like, you know, 3, 4 parts that really stand out. I mean, maybe when you have some film like Avengers, that's like a compilation of
Yeah.
from characters that have been developed over other movies, you have more. But other than that, you know, a typical movie that's introducing characters, you know, for the first time to an audience, you know, you're lucky if you have like 3 or 4 really memorable characters.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times, you know, you have like one, or, you know, and it's like, you know, if you, um, and Instigators had so many fantastic parts. And I was like, we're gonna cast the hell out of this. And so that was my first reaction reading the script, was that and it was the correct prediction, because I mean, it was such a dream team of actors. I mean, it was almost an embarrassment of riches, because like even the first time I shot a scene with Alfred Molina, who I've wanted to work with ever since he played Doc Ock. You know, I know like I'm probably not your typical, I'm not an auteur. Like I'm not your typical filmmaker you might be interviewing who's, you know, going to cite some, you know, fancy European film as, you know, giving them inspiration. I'm like telling you, you know, because
I
Alfred
want
Molina's done,
stories. I want stories, Doug, and you
yeah,
tell
but
great
Alfred
stories.
Molina, you know, he's done Broadway, he's done Shakespeare. I mean, I could have, I'm telling you, it was, you know, Spider-Man that I was like, I want to work with that guy.
Yeah.
And I finally get to work with him on Instigators. But you don't shoot movies necessarily in story order. You shoot them in, based on where locations are and people's schedules. And so the first scene that I happened to shoot with Alfred Molina in Instigators was a scene where he only had 2 lines of dialogue and what is quite a long scene. It's the scene where they're planning the heist. And I was like, and then, it's an embarrassment of riches because I have Matt Damon and Casey Affleck and Jack Harlow, who, I think had done one other, he'd done White Men Can't Jump, but basically never done a movie before. And I had such good luck casting Conor McGregor in Roadhouse that I was like, excited to. And obviously, when I made Swingers, nobody had been in a movie before, so I like sort of people being in first movies, and so it's Matt Damon, Casey Affleck, Jack Harlow, and then I have Michael Stuhlbarg and Alfred Molina, and I'm like walking to set, I'm like, I can't believe how much talent is in this room right here with those 5 actors, and that Alfred Molina, just the quirk of the script in this particular scene, basically is an extra, has no lines, has 2 lines of dialogue. And I was like, I can't believe I wanted to work with this guy for so long. And my first scene I'm shooting with him, he's just going to be an extra. And Alfred says to me, I don't think I should speak in the scene. I don't think I should say anything. And I'm not an actor, but when I was starting out my career, I was living in LA, and most of my friends were either out of work actors, out of work writers, out of work directors. But I had a lot of out of work actor friends, and if they actually got a job, they would count how many lines of dialogue they had. That's all they cared about. Did I get 1 line, 2 lines, 4 lines, 7 lines? And here's Alfred Molina saying, I want to take my 2 lines and make them 0. And basically, we ended up with him saying 1 word in the scene. And it's his first time. It was, what was extraordinary about it was that he creates a character without speaking. And because I was, because in my back in my mind, because I came of age with actor friends who were counting their lines of dialogue, it really was eye-opening to me. I learned from Alfred Molina. I was like, oh, I obviously knew this, but it was not in such a clear way that acting isn't about necessarily the words you say. Like, you can create a character and say no words.
Mm-hmm.
And, now I was like, I wish I had a time machine. I could go back to all my friends when we were in our 20s who were upset because they only had 1 line of dialogue in a scene, and Brad Pitt had all the lines. And I'm like, well, you actually, just because you're not speaking, don't just sit there and do nothing. Like, you can perform without speaking. You can create a character without speaking.
Got a couple of minutes left. 2 things I wanted to get in. With the whole kind of fire truck and all that for me felt like it was Matt and Casey being 6, 7 years old, playing with fire trucks, and Casey getting to write it into the script for this film. It was just so joyous.
Yeah, no, I mean, the reality is I'm pretty juvenile myself. I mean, I'm often, people either, people in my life, my real life, not my, work life, but my real life, either, some of them want me to grow up and some of them appreciate that I haven't grown up. So, it's me getting to play with fire trucks.
Yeah,
And
totally.
Matt and Casey are my little action figures.
Yes. Always go with the latter. Always stay childlike. That's the dream in life for sure. Um, I had such a great time, and I could easily watch, spin-off films with so many
Yeah,
of these
I'm not
characters.
exaggerating. I probably don't have to search far back in my text messages.
Someone to tell you
Uh,
growing up. Um,
I wrote someone, you see how fun I am, and she wrote back, you mean childish. I mean, it is,
I think it's a good quality. I think more adults need to embrace that quality in life for sure. Definitely.
yeah.
Um, I could watch so many
You're
of
not
these
trying to date me.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's a fine line, Doug. It's a fine
Right.
line. Um, I really hope that there's going to be more of this kind of, I don't know, that I could see more of these characters in more films. I don't know if you're thinking about doing a Roadhouse sequel with Jake. I hope so because that film I thought was just absolutely brilliant. I actually I did an event with Jake in London about it, and we were very sad that you weren't there, but obviously for reasons that you've explained as well. But I really hope there is more because I think that it felt like it was a real start with how you just kind of cracked it with that character with you and him. And I really hope that
Jake is coming over. Jake's actually coming over tomorrow. You can see there's like a movie screen behind me. We'll be screening Roadhouse tomorrow night.
yeah, love that. Oh man, that's so great. And Edge of Tomorrow. Are we is it where please tell me it's like it's I mean, I just have
I am
everything.
hard at work trying to figure it out. Like it
Yes.
is, it's just, I recently, watched the movie. We watched it with basically everyone from the movie, and I was like, Jesus, like we made a good movie. Like this is a
Yeah.
high bar.
Yeah.
Got me excited to, really like, Tom wanted me to watch it again to, just get inspired, but I was like, oh, it's because that was a really hard movie to figure out. Like if you were,
Time travel, man.
I had, a dream team of writers helping me, and I almost killed them, in terms of just what it. All you have to do is try to write a movie with time travel in it to come to the conclusion that humans will never travel through time, because it's so freaking hard to figure out how you can have a third act in a movie with time travel. You're like, this just there's too many paradoxes, and you're like, oh, humans will just never travel through time.
Yeah.
Not possible.
Um, I'm excited what you do with it, particularly as well because of Emily and what Emily's achieved in between, making that film with you to kind of
Yeah, no,
where
that was like
she
a
is
sort
now
of,
as
that
well.
was her first Emily Blunt's first big action movie, and and she's become a huge star.
Smashing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, run out of time. It's so great to chat to you, Doug, and
It's so much fun talking to you. Thank you.
continue to entertain us and continue to be childlike and yeah, and I look forward to the next adventure. Thanks so much, Doug.
Thank you.